Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. Folks, welcome back to another episode of the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer. With me today, I have the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young. We're going to talk about website demographics, because obviously if you're marketing to the wrong set of demographics, the wrong people show up to your website, you don't get the conversions, and then you're bummed out because your website just isn't working. So for all those people that are on the technical end, let's talk about demographics. What exactly is demographics for a website, Tom?
It's a great question because demographics is kind of the marketing fundamentals. It's back to the marketing 101. And we talk a lot about Google Analytics and stats and visitors and unique visitors and all that. Well, demographics is a little bit deeper than that. And in fact, demographics is really made up of three things that you have to think about. One is what we would call demographics, which is it's anything that's objective and measurable data on the user. So it's black and white data.
That could be like within a zip code.
Yeah, where they live.
Where they live.
Their age, their size, male, female.
Income.
Right. It's black and white. There's no question. It's black and white. It's a yes or no answer. And then the second part of it is geographics, which is a specific thing as far as location. But geographic is also, what does their location mean? So if they do live in a zip code, well, what are the demographics of that zip code as far as the stats and the numbers? Because sometimes you market to a geographic area.
Which would be a big difference between Beverly Hills.
That's right.
And Denver.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then the third area is psychographics, and this is the opposite of the black and white part of demographics. This is things like their approach to things, their opinions, their thoughts, their behaviors, things we can't predict. But we can kind of get a sense of where they might lean based on the old demographics in general. So understanding demographics is absolutely critical, because then your website has to be tailored to meet the needs of that demographic, whether it's black and white data, the geographic location, or their psychographics, their approaches and opinions.
One quick thing on psychographics, though, just so all of our listeners are clear, and I'm clear on this. This is also more along the lines of music somebody might listen to, religious beliefs, starts getting into things,
opinion, a thought.
So it's more abstract, but it's a complete marketing segment that you can market to.
It's abstract, but it's a need definer. I mean, it defines what they're looking for. And the better that your website can do hitting these three things, demographics, geographics, psychographics, the better the results you're going to get. Now, what we see a lot is that there's a huge disconnect between a website meeting the needs of their demographics and its design. And the reason this happens is because websites are usually built by just a handful of people, and they do what they think works.
So right? It might be a graphic designer that says, hey, you've got handbags going on. We're designing for handbags. Let's make this sexy and design it for what they think the demographic is. Yeah,
I recently saw, and I hate to pick on attorneys, but I will, because their websites are usually some of the worst websites out there. I recently saw a legal firm website that did personal injury, and the color on the website was a blood red color for a personal injury attorney. Not considering the demographic there. I mean, do you really want your demographic to come to your website and see blood after they've just been in an injury? And that's what's happening here. If you do, then I'm missing something in this equation, because that should be a turnoff, not something that moves them forward.
And that sounds like more of a branding issue.
Well, it just shows you how, when a website's designed with a small sample size, okay, you're not going to get that targeted approach. You're not going to meet the needs of demographics. And most websites are designed that way. The designer, the developer, the person behind the site has way too much influence on what they think the demographic wants. So
how do you find out that information, Tom?
Well, I think what you have to do, if you're going to build websites, you've got to really understand marketing and marketing strategy. I think that the biggest thing we see is that a lot of people think that marketing is kind of like a hobby, or marketing is just, something you have an interest in and anyone can do it. Anyone can do marketing. so I think I'm going to jump in and just do marketing. Well, that's not true. Marketing is a science. It's a discipline. It's something you have to be trained in and understand. It's something that you go to school to learn the basics, and then you go to the real world to implement and see the results. So if you're doing website development, website design, you've got to understand these fundamentals of marketing. You've got to understand what brand is all about and all that. And then these things all tie into the return you're going to see from your website. And a lot of times when your website, when you struggle to get return from your website and get conversion rates, it's because those fundamentals haven't been taken care of.
Well, we talk a lot about user testing, and that being one of the ideal ways to make it work. And I really think you bring up a distinction here as far as marketing is concerned, because there's a big difference between having your mother, who doesn't really understand how the internet works, doing user testing for your website. However, if she's not in your target demographic that you're targeting, she's not your target client or your ideal client, she's really the wrong person to be doing the user testing. And
absolutely, yeah. And you've got to understand, too, that you might have a website that 80-90% of the people coming to the site is the wrong market. In fact, we had a client recently that we worked with, and that was about the case. Probably 90% of the traffic coming to the site was coming for the wrong reasons, and we wanted to find out why they were coming to the site and what they were doing. So we actually did user testing on the demographic that was coming to the site. It happened to be music lovers, and what we found really quick is that there is a big difference between the music enthusiast and the music lover and the type of the way they buy music. So, like, for example, there are some people that, and this is a majority actually, that have very little concept of buying music as a hard, tangible thing. Everything's downloaded. It's all software. And then there are a group of people that still want the CD or the album. Breaking up that market segment and figuring out what the needs are of both of those two groups, it's real interesting. And you've got your website, if you're going to sell albums, let's say, on the web, then you've got to target that market really well.
And there are also maybe some other ways. I mean, what are some other ways that people can go about finding out their demographics? So let's already say we've gone through our ideal client, what we say our ideal client is. We've done user testing with that ideal client. What are other ways to go out and find our ideal demographic? What are some other research things we can look at?
Well, obviously, you can do the stats on your website. You can do user testing. But I think that really getting to the root of the problem here is that you've got to understand what this means. You've got to understand what demographics are all about and what it means. You've got to understand marketing. And then you've got to go out and understand your business. I mean, you have to understand the basic offering of your business and then look at the kind of person that comes to your website. And you can do that through the stats, but I think one of the key things to do is look at your keywords and then look at Google searches around those keywords, and you'll start to get a sense of, well, the searches that show up here and the results I'm seeing, do those line up with what my website offers? And then you can get a chance to look at it. But demographic, it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than just stats, too, because every photo, the colors, the fonts, the taglines, every part of your website communicates something to the demographic you're drawing in.
Now, I mean, how much focus from a marketing plan, because this really deals with the marketing plan for your business, for your website business.
You're right. Yes, absolutely.
How much attention from a marketing plan standpoint should the website demographics? How much attention should be put on demographics?
Well, I think you should have a section in your marketing plan that's called target market analysis. And in that section, you should talk about who the target market is, and that would be part one. And then part two would be how you position for that target market. So let's take the music lover example. So if your website is selling hard to find CDs and albums for the album enthusiast, then you want to make sure that the person coming to your website that's what they're looking for, because you're going to get lots of visits from people that just are looking for music or are looking around to see what's out there, and most of those people are going to be into the iTunes format, which is just download a song. So I think that really it starts with education and moving into understanding these fundamentals of marketing, and then implementing them through your marketing plan. Absolutely.
And what are the other things? I mean, we kind of mentioned briefly. You talked about looking at the keywords, and I know this kind of moves into the pay-per-click end of website marketing and really buying those, owning the search in Google, things like that. There's a whole another art to that. We've got a lot of podcasts already. You can go back and listen to all those and get some more information. But that might be a really good review for some of our listeners going, oh, hey, well, I'm going to review this and I'm going to check my demographics and I'm going to get into some more pay-per-click. Yeah. You may want to go back and review some of those podcasts because there's a lot of great information there, and there's a lot of mistakes that can be made. I mean, I did a pay-per-click campaign about a month and a half ago, and I probably spent $300 more than I should have spent on it, and it was just an initial little, let's check this out. And in the end, it was not my target demographic that was actually coming. And I had a really, really narrow focus. I think the clicks per month was under 4,000 worldwide. I mean, I had a really narrow niche.
Yes.
But even in that narrow niche, those people that were coming to the site were not my target demographic.
Yeah, it's almost like the best websites and the best producing marketing campaigns are the ones that can answer this question. Why are people coming to my website? And we've got to be able to look at a keyword and say, okay, so they searched on that keyword, laundry detergent. Why are they coming to the website? Do they want to buy laundry detergent? Do they want to know how to use it?
Do they want to know how to make it?
Do they want to know how to make it? Are they looking to sell it? Are they looking for customers to buy their laundry? I mean, so understanding intent is all about understanding demographics, geographics, and psychographics. And what's interesting about how they work together is that if you understand the demographics and geographics, you can get to psychographics because people with like minds kind of hang out together. It's just the way it works. So really, I think the bottom line is get an understanding of what this is all about so that when you go to your website, you look at your stats, you look at your search engine results, you look at all the things you need to do to be successful, you can bring it back to these marketing fundamentals and that are so important.
What are some other items that our listeners can take a look at as far as action steps?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that I'm going to recommend here is that if you're a web professional and you haven't had any marketing courses and haven't spent time with a marketing or branding consultant, you need to do that. It's a very important part. It's just as important as learning the software that you work with or learning about basics of usability on a site. You've got to have that foundation. And obviously, spend time with the stats, relate stats and user testing or any research you do back to these demographics, geographics, and psychographics. As you set up your marketing campaigns, you mentioned Google AdWords and search engine programs, that all has to be tied back to, once again, the demographics and so forth. In fact, Google AdWords does an amazing job of selecting geographic location. And you should know if someone's living in that area, this is how they're going to approach your website. And so work your website design and messaging to meet those needs. And one of the things you might want to do is think about bringing in someone who's a brand expert or a marketing expert to help you with your website and help you drive return and results.
Well, thanks so much, Tom. Thanks for joining us with this episode of the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast on website demographics. And like we mentioned before, go back and listen to some of those older podcasts because there's a lot of great information on pay-per-click, Google AdWords, search engine optimization, all of that, once you found out what your ideal demographic is. Well, we'll catch all of you on the next podcast. Thanks for joining us.
This has been an Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. For more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitiveblog.com.